Brother, let me ask you something. If you ask any man what women fear most, they will say the same things. Betrayal, rejection, abandonment, maybe loneliness. But listen carefully, those are only the surface. They are symptoms, not the real fear. The true fear is much deeper, and most women never admit it, not even to themselves. Today, I will reveal it to you. After this, you will see women and relationships with new eyes. If you are new to this channel, subscribe now and stay until the end. Like, share, and enjoy this content. Brother, what I'm about to share took me years to learn. For decades, I thought women were like us. I believed their fears were our fears, their desires were our desires. That mistake almost destroyed every relationship I ever had. Listen well, the biggest mistake a man can make is to project his own mind into a woman. Our fears are not their fears. Men fear failure, we fear weakness, we fear disrespect. Our nightmare is that another man stronger than us will humiliate us or replace us. That is what keeps us awake at night. But for women, the game is completely different. When a man is betrayed, his world collapses because of humiliation, loss of honor, and pain in his pride. Yes, it's brutal, but when a woman is betrayed, the wound is not only about the betrayal, it carries a hidden message. You are no longer valuable. You are being replaced. You are now irrelevant. That is the stab that cuts deepest. Do you see the difference? For us, betrayal is an attack on our honor. For women, betrayal feels like a death sentence for their value. Now let's go deeper. For thousands of years, a man's survival depended on his strength, his honor, his ability to fight, protect, and provide. If he was weak, he could die, starve, or be enslaved. But a woman, even if weak, could still survive if she secured the protection of the strongest man she could find. That ancient reality got burned into the female psychology. And even today, in the 21st century, it's still running in the background of their minds. This is why attention means more to them than truth. This is why validation matters to them more than logic. This is why the fear of being replaced cuts them so deeply. Machiavelli understood this when he wrote about power and human nature. He knew every person is driven by fear, and if you want to understand someone, you must understand what terrifies them the most. Here is the truth most men never see. Women's biggest fear is not betrayal, not abandonment, not loneliness. Their deepest fear is becoming irrelevant, invisible, forgotten. Think about it. When a woman of 35 sees her man looking at a woman of 25, it's not just normal jealousy, it is primitive terror. She feels she is being measured against time and found lacking. She fears losing the race against age. When she tests you, when she creates drama, when she pushes you, it's not always out of malice. It's her biology screaming, is this man strong enough to keep me relevant, or will he throw me away when something better comes? Every test, every drama, every moment of irrational behavior is really her inner system asking, can I trust this man with my future, or am I fooling myself? And here is the sad truth. Most men fail these tests, not because they are weak, but because they don't even know the tests are happening. They think they are being attacked, when in reality they are being evaluated. If you see it as an attack, you respond with anger or defense. If you see it as an evaluation, you respond with calm strength and control. And when a man finally understands this, he changes. He stops taking female behavior personally. He stops getting angry at things that are simply nature in action. And he starts responding in ways that actually work. Because once you realize her fear is not betrayal, but irrelevance, everything shifts. Her need for constant validation no longer irritates you, you understand it. Her tendency to test you no longer frustrates you, you expect it. Her drive for security no longer surprises you, you respect it. And when a man begins to live with this deep understanding instead of his own projections, he becomes something powerful. He becomes a man who truly understands women. What you are about to learn is simple and brutal. There are 3 switches of female pleasure that completely change how a woman reacts to your gaze, your silence, your touch. 3 codes that few men apply consciously, and because of that, they lose the chance to be unforgettable. Today you will understand how these switches work, why they activate deep desire, and how to apply each one naturally, intensely, without forcing anything. This is a turning point. It is the transition between the man who tries to impress and the man who is remembered. The difference between being just another one and being the impact. When you learn to activate these three switches, you no longer need to chase, compete, or perform. You simply occupy your place as a man, and her brain does the rest. Switch 1. Focused attention. The pleasure of being fully perceived. There is a detail that separates the man who awakens deep pleasure from the one who goes unnoticed. Presence. Not physical presence, but attentional presence. Most men are with a woman, but they are not in her. They look at their phone, avoid eye contact, respond without intention, move restlessly. Every small distraction communicates the same silent message: she could be anyone. This is the mistake that dries desire before connection even begins. A woman immediately feels when she is not being perceived, and this is one of the greatest thieves of pleasure that exists. The practical application is direct. When you are with her, eliminate distractions, phone face down, body oriented toward her, slower breathing, attentive listening. Her pleasure begins exactly here. There is a powerful psychological phenomenon many ignore. Women feel emotional pleasure when they perceive that a man is truly focused. Studies on flirting styles show that sincere flirting is marked by total attention, aligned rhythm, steady eye contact, and synchronized laughter. This creates a feeling of connection that immediately increases her emotional openness. But this only happens when the man observes before speaking, perceives before reacting, feels before commenting. Practical application. Instead of trying to impress with rehearsed stories, ask 2 or 3 deep questions and follow her body signals, the lingering gaze, the smile that appears, the change in breathing. That is how you turn on the switch of pleasure of being seen. What surprises most is that it is not your communication skill that creates pleasure. It is the rarity of your attention. Women become involved when they realize you perceive subtleties no one else notices. The exact way she touches her hair when she is interested, the micro smile that appears when she feels safe, the light in her eyes when she remembers something important. Her body responds, "This man is here with me. This man notices me. This man understands invisible rhythms." The practical application is simple. Name details, not to compliment, but to show you truly perceive. Science confirms this precisely. Studies on attraction demonstrate that active listening and embodied presence increase perceived emotional value. People are naturally drawn to those who observe them without anxiety, without internal competition, without agitation. When you reduce unnecessary movements, keep your torso oriented toward her, and hold eye contact without invading, your posture communicates that you are not on autopilot. You are connected. Concrete application. On dates, reduce gestures, stabilize your body, and speak with the cadence of someone who is not trying to prove anything. The applicable method is what I call the closed attention field. In the first 10 minutes of interaction, you do not try to be interesting. You try to be perceptive. Your job is to read her tone of voice, her rhythm, her body language, her energy. Only after that do you begin to reveal parts of yourself. This simple inversion activates the first switch of female pleasure, the pleasure of being seen, felt, and chosen. And once this switch is on, everything that comes after becomes more intense because her body has already begun to open before any touch happens. Switch 2. Tension and mystery. The pleasure of anticipation. There is a psychological phenomenon that silently decides whether a woman will desire you or forget you. The degree of emotional unpredictability you create. Many men destroy this potential before it even begins. They give everything too fast, they expose intention too early. They reply instantly. They reveal their entire life in a few conversations. No contrast, no rhythm, no space. When everything is obvious, her brain loses the ability to anticipate, and without anticipation, there is no pleasure. The practical application is simple and immediate. Stop explaining yourself, reduce excessive messaging, abandon the compulsion to reply immediately, not as a game, but to let desire breathe. Neuroscience explains this clearly. The biggest dopamine spike does not happen when we receive a reward, but when we anticipate that it is about to happen. Studies show the human brain reacts more strongly to almost than to now. In female desire, this translates perfectly. She feels pleasure not when everything is given, but when something might happen, when there is a small doubt, when you leave something in the air. Practical application: create micro cliffhangers. Tell a story up to the emotional point and stop. Say you have something interesting to tell and leave it for the next meeting. Share one detail about yourself and keep the rest. Keep her curiosity alive, not satisfied. Many women do not want to know everything about you quickly. They want to discover you, they want to assemble you piece by piece. They want to feel depth, layers, silence, intensity. When you dump too much information, you kill imagination. When you give little, consciously, you ignite the feminine imagination. That is when she starts thinking about you when you are not around. That is when she tries to predict your next moves. That is when she begins to involve herself on her own. The practical application is clear. Offer excerpts, not the entire movie. Research on reward mechanisms shows the brain fixates more intensely when there is rewarding uncertainty. When we do not know exactly when, how, or how much pleasure will come, the mind creates anticipation loops. And anticipation loops are the foundation of desire. That is why the predictable man is forgotten, while the man who controls his energy and rhythm leaves a trace. The strategic application here is to alternate intense presence with periods fully dedicated to your own life, training, projects, personal focus. This creates emotional contrast and prevents you from becoming static. The practical method of this switch is the 70-30 rule of delivery. In every interaction, you deliver only 70% of what you could. You leave 30% suspended for the future, an unfinished story, a response you hold back, a detail you mention but do not expand. That gap creates a powerful psychological force. Her brain continues thinking about you, trying to complete what you did not say. That gap activates the second switch. That gap creates pleasure without you even touching her. Switch 3. Exciting safety. The pleasure of letting go without fear. Nothing destroys female desire faster than a man who transmits safety but zero intensity. And nothing is more frightening than a man who is intense but emotionally immature. Both fail for the same reason: she cannot relax. Female pleasure only expands when her body feels it can surrender without risk. This does not happen with the man who tries to be perfect, nor with the man who tries to dominate. It happens with the man who is stable inside and alive outside, a firmly rooted axis with pulsating energy. The practical application is simple to understand but rare to execute. Unite emotional stability with a strong personality. Evolutionary psychology is clear. Studies across dozens of cultures show women prioritize partners who transmit safety, direction, and maturity. This is biology, not opinion. But there is a second component few men offer: emotional stimulation. A woman feels pleasure when she perceives that a man knows where he is going in life and, at the same time, is not overly predictable. It is the mix of clarity and vibration, stability and fire, structure and spontaneity. Practical application: make it clear through your routine, goals and organization that you have direction. Balance that with humor, boldness, and a live presence. What truly surprises in this switch is that it does not demand perfection. It demands unshakability. She may test, provoke, play, create tension, and the man who activates this switch remains aligned. He does not lose control. He does not explain himself. He does not become a victim. He does not raise his voice. He remains self-owned. This makes her body relax instantly. Practical application: when faced with drama or emotional instability from her, reduce your speech. Use short sentences. Breathe slowly. Do not enter her chaos. This is not coldness. This is emotional leadership. Science confirms this pattern. Research shows that partners demonstrate greater desire and emotional openness when a man has high affect regulation. In other words, when he does not fall apart under pressure. The female brain associates this behavior with absence of emotional risk. which facilitates trust, surrender, and pleasure. This stability is not born from techniques. It is born from habits: sleeping better, training, having a routine, having goals, eliminating excess. Your internal stability shapes your tone of voice, posture, patience, and energy. She reads all of this in seconds. The final method of this switch is the dangerous safe harbor frame. Predictable in character, she knows you do what you say. Unpredictable in experience, you do not fall into routine. You do not repeat the same conversations. You do not act like a relationship manual. You do not oscillate with jealousy, approval-seeking tests, or ambiguity. This is where her pleasure explodes. She feels she can surrender because you are safe, and she feels desire because you are exciting. That is the third switch. When you activate all three, you stop being remembered as a common experience and become an emotional landmark. Conclusion. Female pleasure is not chance. It is masculine emotional engineering. There is a truth the average man avoids facing. Female pleasure does not come from luck, natural talent, or some secret gift. It comes from how you occupy your inner territory. It is cause, not consequence. When you understand this, you realize everything you lived with women until now was not a lack of looks, money, or the right words. It was a lack of emotional engineering. Nietzsche said that the true will to power is not to dominate others, but to dominate oneself. That sentence dismantles the entire masculine fantasy about seduction. The man who controls his impulses, focus, and energy becomes capable of controlling the emotional climate of any environment. And women feel this as a magnetic field. The three switches fit together like perfect gears. Focused attention, the pleasure of being seen; tension and mystery, the pleasure of anticipation; exciting safety, the pleasure of letting go without fear. They are not isolated techniques. They are internal states that shape your behavior naturally and inevitably. When you master attention, you create presence. When you master tension, you create desire. When you master safety, you create surrender. That is when you stop being just a pleasant encounter and become an unforgettable experience. There is something no man admits, but all feel. The fear of being forgotten, the fear of being ordinary, the fear of leaving no mark. These three switches are the antidote to that silent pain. They transform you from a spectator of your emotional life into an author, from someone who reacts to female interest into someone who provokes it. You do not need to be perfect. You need to be conscious. You do not need to be extraordinary. You need to be deep. That is the difference between men remembered for hours and men remembered for years. The final challenge is simple and brutally effective. In the next few days, do not try to get everything right at once. Choose one switch at a time. First, absolute presence. Then, calibrated mystery. Then, exciting safety. One layer per interaction. One calibration per conversation. You will notice female reactions change almost immediately because female pleasure is sensory, psychological, and emotional. And you are learning to access all of that with intention, not luck.